Hey, everybody. Welcome to In Broad Daylight, a solo podcast hosted by me. I'm Adam Todd Brown. This week on another podcast I host, the universally adored You Don't Even Like This Show, we talked about the insane rumors being spread by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and right-wingers far and wide about Haitian immigrants abducting and eating pets in Springfield, Ohio, which isn't true, by the way, but you probably know that by now. Everyone is talking about it since Trump unraveled and started yelling about immigrants eating cats and dogs during the last presidential debate. But that wasn't the only racist lie about immigrants that Trump referenced during the debate that night. It's not quite as sensational as eating cats, so it hasn't generated nearly the same buzz. But early in the debate, Trump said, quote, "You look at Aurora in Colorado. They're taking over the towns," end quote. The fuck is that all about, you ask? He's referring to a rumor that a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua is taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. Just like with the cat eating story, officials in Aurora, including the police, have gone public to refute the claims, but that hasn't stopped conservatives from continuing to spread it. Even though one of the people denying the claim the loudest is Aurora's conservative mayor, Mike Kaufman. Except, whoops, he was also one of the first people to get the ball rolling when it came to making the story go viral. It started with the landlord of the buildings in question, Brooklyn, New York-based CBZ Management. For years before claims that gangs of Venezuelan criminals New Jack City'd the place started surfacing, the city of Aurora had been feverishly trying to get CBZ Management to make needed repairs to the buildings, which were flush with rodent infestations, missing windows, sewage leaks, a lack of garbage service, you name it. At one point, CBZ property manager Zev Baumgarten was set to face trial over the mismanagement of the three buildings and was facing 99 different counts. But in July 2024, before that trial even started, CBZ Management came up with a new excuse for why they couldn't make the repairs tenants needed so very badly. They claimed that Venezuelan gangs had taken over the buildings and chased all the property managers away. A shocking claim that aforementioned conservative mayor Mike Kaufman didn't even sort of look into before repeating it during a local radio interview on July 31st. The claim was also picked up by city council member Danielle Jurinsky around the same time, and she made a big deal of getting on the news and helping the first white family she could find move right out of there. According to the New York Times, the next crucial development happened on August 5th, when a PR agent hired by CBZ Management emailed the tip line of a local Fox television network affiliate in Denver to pitch them a story. Here's a quote from that email. "An apartment building and its owners in Aurora, Colorado have become the most recent victims of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua's violence, which has taken over several communities in the Denver area. The residents and building owners of these properties have been left in a state of fear and chaos," end quote. Later in August, a video started circulating on social media showing a group of men with guns entering an apartment at one of the complexes, and conservatives were off and running. Let's talk about this video for a second. I'll link to a story about it in the show notes. Watch it for yourself. For one thing, there's no evidence or indication that the people shown in the video are members of Tren de Aragua or even Venezuelan. But beyond that, if you watch the video closely, you'll note that this group of armed men don't kick the door in or anything of the like. They just knock and someone lets them in. And you don't see what happens next, but it definitely doesn't look like they enter the apartment in an aggressive way. It's just a group of men carrying guns into an apartment in Colorado. You know what Colorado is? An open carry state. You can carry guns around there all willy-nilly, and conservatives usually love it. If this was a group of white men, the right-wingers would just assume they were hunters renters exercising their Second Amendment rights. But because conservatives have a narrative to push and the people in it aren't white, this video to those conservatives represents clear evidence that Tren de Aragua has taken over several apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. Mayor Mike Kaufman did eventually walk back his promotion of this claim after, get this, visiting the apartment buildings in person. The first time he went, he apparently wore a bulletproof vest, assuming he was walking into some kind of gang-infested war zone. Instead, he just saw a bunch of renters being criminally ignored by the people who owned and managed the building. Here's a quote. "The pattern of problems are with one, really, I'm going to be real blunt, I guess, out-of-state slumlord," end quote. Again, that is conservative Mayor Mike Kaufman. He even took it a step further and held a joint interview with Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, a Democrat, to assure people that the stories weren't true. Because you know how that happens all the time. A Democrat and a Republican get together on TV to talk about how people should calm down about immigrants from Venezuela. The only thing Republicans and Democrats usually agree about when it comes to Venezuela is that they want their oil. But it seems like the damage is mostly done. Last week, Trump said his plan to pull off the largest mass deportation in history is going to start with Springfield and Aurora. And I doubt there's much anyone can say or do to change that now. And I think at least part of the reason why this rumor is taken off the way it is boils down to some misconceptions about what the middle part of the country is like. A lot of people are going to hear Aurora, Colorado, and assume we're talking about suburbs and white people exclusively. And now along come these immigrants bringing their criminal ways to this quaint little Colorado town. Except no on all counts. For one thing, the population is just under 400,000. That's not a small town. It's the third largest city in Colorado. I won't make you Google it. Number 2 is Colorado Springs. Anyway, if Tren de Aragua has set up shop in Aurora, they would just be one among several gangs that have been operating in the area since about as long as street gangs have existed. Back in 2022, an outlet called the Colorado Sentinel ran a story about how gangs in the area have recently changed compared to what they were like decades ago. Their words. That article said that police estimated there were anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000 people that they would consider gang members who lived in Aurora, Colorado. So there's probably only like 1,000 for real, but still. And that's just Aurora. That figure doesn't take nearby Denver into account. There are lots of gangs in the area we're talking about here. They run the gamut from the legends, like the Bloods and Crips, and their Midwestern equivalents, Vice Lords and Gangster Disciples, to more niche groups, like a youth group that calls themselves the Boner Boys, or the Gallant Knights Insane, who are described as, quote, classy, well-dressed, violent Chicanos who grew by the thousands across Denver and surrounding cities, end quote. Ooh, classy and violent. If you think those two words don't belong together, explain Suge Knight. Meanwhile, just 10 people have been definitively ID'd as members of Tren de Aragua in Aurora, Colorado so far. And that's again, according to police. And they in no way, shape, or form represent a new problem that's been imported to some sleepy small town because of Biden's immigration policies. These claims are leading to real-life problems for the city. Of course, residents of these buildings who've been identified on social media have been the targets of threats from white supremacists who talk about forming militias to take the apartments back. When that video of men with guns entering an apartment circulated, it was often paired with images of a gaggle of Hell's Angels on the road and claims that they were heading to Aurora to liberate those apartment buildings. They were not. That was also just a lie. The rumors are also putting a strain on emergency services. Here's a quote from Mayor Kaufman. "It's overwhelming our 911 system or our emergency call center. And so it's actually hurting our ability to respond to crime. I think we're in some sort of environment of hysteria right now over this. It's a real issue. It's being dealt with. It's isolated," end quote. But Republican City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky says the city is just lying about the problem. And I don't believe her. Because here's the thing. Just a reminder, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado, is a Trump supporter who opposes the Biden administration's immigration policies. Sure, I don't always trust government officials, almost never, honestly. But when a conservative Republican tells me a local immigrant gang isn't that big of a deal, I believe it. I have no doubt Mayor Mike would love to say immigrants are taking over apartment buildings in his city. In fact, I know he'd love to because that's exactly what he said in that radio interview before he actually went to the apartment buildings to see what was really going on. This is a legitimately scary situation. The demonization of immigrants has been happening for a long time in this country, approximately forever. But in this case, it's being focused on specific areas and groups of people, which means there's a specific target. And American history is absolutely filthy with moments where lies about a particular group of people in a specific area ended in racist violence of epic proportions. These aren't just words. This is how genocides start. Trump and Vance are pushing these stories because they want to convince people that we need to round up 10 to 13 million people and send them to camps at the border. That's not an exaggeration. That's just the plan. And hey, sorry for not ending this week's episode on a more upbeat note. That is not easy to do when you're talking about genocide, you know? But hey, thank you for listening, or thank you for watching, however you decided to do it this week. I appreciate you all the same. If you want to help me out a little, you could subscribe or hit that like button or do both of those things. Listen to the podcast wherever podcasts are at. Give it a good rating and review if you don't mind. And hey, that's it. Thanks, everybody. I love you.